All right. Well, great to be with you, Sarah. These folks have heard enough of me, so we're going to try to anchor in you. How was your trip in?
It was actually uneventful. Everybody's been asking, like, was your flight delayed? Did you have problems? And I was like, no, we just flew right in. I didn't even know there was a hurricane, apparently.
Well, welcome back to Virginia Tech. It's wonderful to have you back in our community, as always. I thought we'd sort of start there, actually. And you know, you're a Hokie, went to college at Virginia Tech, of course, studied chemical engineering, as I understand it, and now you're CEO of Lattice. And have held senior roles at some of the world's most consequential companies. I wonder if you might begin by personally reflecting a little bit on your journey from studying Chem-E in Blacksburg to where you are now. What comes to mind as you reflect on that journey? What mattered? What stayed with you?
You sound like my mother every day. She's like, so what does your degree have to do with your job again?
That wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan.
No, but I get asked this question a lot, and I'm very honored to be here today as a fellow Hokie. Some of my fondest memories are, you know, in Blacksburg, on campus, on the drill field. The school was a lot smaller when I was, you know, in school. It's grown a lot from all of the innovation. But what's so powerful, I think, is that, as you mentioned, I was chemical engineering and also biochemistry. And I really wanted to be a doctor, but turned out I was just really bad at the science pieces of it.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And so when I got into work, I realized how much I enjoyed the engineering side of problem solving. And I remember in EF, like freshman year, just learning the basics of looking at a problem, writing down the assumptions that you were making, writing down the problem that you needed to solve, writing down the facts, and then going through formulaically, logically to get to a solution.
Amazing.
And that basic skill applies to business, it applies to marketing, it applies to innovation, it applies to management, of being very, very dogmatic about saying, what am I really trying to solve? And what assumptions am I making about things that are true or not true, or capable or not capable, and putting my brain in a state where I'm thinking about how can I creatively solve the problem.
Well, I know you just got here, but that dovetails beautifully with some of our conversations earlier where we were talking about durable skills, and I think you just articulated quite a durable skill. What about being here in the DC area? I know you're passionate about public policy advocacy and make trips here often. What is it like seeing Virginia Tech with a footprint here in our national capital region? Any reflections there?
It's very inspiring. It's also very inspiring that I live in California and now the ACC has members like Stanford.
That's right.
And I'm very much looking forward to October 5th when we beat Stanford. That's my prediction. So I would just say that seeing Virginia Tech here, seeing it globally, seeing the impact of alumni in the world today is very powerful, it's very inspiring, and I'm so impressed with the leadership and you're here, which is so incredible to have you representing the future, like showing that tech is the person or the college that's going to stand up for AI and help bring people responsibly into the future. Being here where legislation is made and policy is created and debated, and I think that's so powerful that tech, and I'm so proud to be a Hokie and an alumni of a school that is doing that.
Well, we're proud to have you. Why don't we talk a little bit about your leadership of Lattice? Before we do that, just ground for the audience a feel for Lattice's mission and your business, and then we'll kind of reflect a little bit on how you all stay people-centered in your own work. But just for the audience, give folks a feel for Lattice's mission and business.
Yeah, so as mentioned in the introductions, Lattice is about a 9-year-old company founded by a few, Eric Koslow and Jack Altman, who is Sam Altman's brother. So there's a lot of intelligence in that family. And the mission was very simple, and it was just to make work meaningful. And you think about that, those 3 little words, it's like, well, what is meaningful work? Well, it's work that, not just that you're happy, it's work where you're fulfilled, where you're inspired, where you understand the pathway that you're working towards, you understand your goals, you understand feedback, how you can improve. And it sounds very basic, but it's actually very hard. It's hard to write down your goals, to align on those as a company, to align on those as teams, to get feedback, to give feedback, and then to keep progressing yourself through your career. And so Lattice basically does all of that. It helps you run the people side of your company. And it's been very powerful because people are getting promotions, people are bettering their careers, and this ultimately leads to better business.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I love your framing on making work meaningful, and incredibly prescient that the company was founded in 2015, because, one way I think about sort of future of work conversations, another way to frame that is the future of meaning making, actually, because work is such a big part of how we make meaning. How do you all, you all have a bunch of business lines, a bunch of revenue channels, but how do you all, through it all, retain a focus on people at the company? How do you keep people at the center, even as you're driving against a bunch of other metrics?
Yeah, so people is our north. People is our ultimate goal for people's success. And as a CEO, it's something which I've also embraced, is how my head of people, my head of HR, is one of the most strategic relationships and seats on my executive team. Because when your people aren't thriving, your business is just not going to do well. If people aren't inspired, if they're not motivated, if they're not coming to work every day and giving their best, your company is not going to be doing well. Whether it's customer service and the attitude that people have towards talking to customers with questions, or sales when people are talking to potential new customers, or even your engineers or your financial team, you want people to feel like they're happy and doing great work. And when that happens, it becomes like this snowball of positivity. And at Lattice, it's very simple because it just is modeled from the top. And that when you do that as a leader, as a manager, it becomes the ethos and the culture of the company. And when you care about people's careers, you care about people's work, you care about the quality of your products and services, it just becomes cultural and it just manifests itself.
Let's spend a couple of minutes talking about AI and Lattice. Obviously, your platform itself is AI powered. Do you want to, let's spend a couple of minutes describing how those puzzle pieces fit, and then we'll talk a little bit about ways in which you all have used AI and contemplated it. But how does AI fit into the puzzle that is Lattice? Yeah,
well, if I look at the title of this, this day here, this event, it is AI, but then it's underpinned with data and trust. Yeah. And so a big part of what Lattice, our system, does is capture and manage data about employees. And this is data which is, highly sensitive. It needs to meet a lot of the, compliance and legal requirements that vary by state, by country. It's a lot of data. And so at the heart of Lattice is data about people. And where I came from, like 20, a lot of years before Lattice, I was more on the customer side, where I worked with customer data. And you see a lot with AI on, customer service or sales or writing emails or doing better, conversations when people have questions. But think of that just with employees then. Think about every single person here is probably, well, I hope you have had a job, you've had a manager, you've been a manager. And it's really frustrating when you're doing your job and people don't know what you're supposed to be doing or what you have done, or feedback from other peers and colleagues. And so at the heart of everything is great data about your people and your employees. And because we collect it in across engagement and feedback and everything around you, that is what then fuels AI. And because the data must be compliant, et cetera, the benefit is that it is good data. I'm not going to have an incorrect amount on your salary. I'm not going to have an incorrect amount of time that you've taken off, or I'm not going to have bad data about you as an employee. And so then that helps me very well derive great insights and great action plans, whether it's your career plan, whether it's your learning, custom bespoke learning, areas where you can improve, whether it's your hiring and your workforce planning, what skills you really need to hire, where you need to hire, how you compensate people and incentivize them in ways that match match them, and you do it fairly, and you can see bias, which is in your system, and remove bias as much as possible. So because we have this very good and rich data set, AI becomes very, I shouldn't say easy, but it becomes well applied to people and in your workforce.
Yeah, sound, clean data as a kind of prerequisite to success. I'm just curious, is there a particular customer that comes to mind, or a particular use case of Lattice that is particularly inspired and thorough and comprehensive, that, just curious if there's a customer use case we might offer to folks to bring to life the power of the platform?
Yeah, well, OpenAI is a customer.
All right.
Like
people here.
OpenAI, Anthropic, Perplexity, like a lot of the leaders in AI are leading their companies with Lattice. And what I would say to that question, though, is that what is hard, and also let me say this differently. What is complex is that every company has a different philosophy for how they should manage their people. They have different names for their programs. They have different beliefs between what a performance culture may be. And so the system also has to be inherently customizable, because there is no one-size-fits-all approach. And if you talk to people leaders and CHROs, they will tell you there are various philosophies. And I also find it interesting because we talk a lot about how complicated technical systems are. You have CIOs, which manage really, difficult, technical, big implementations that manage a lot of data and a lot of systems. But the most complicated system that any business has is your people system. Because people are all different, and they all want different things, and they're not going to respond the same across the board. Where a computer should respond the same. 2 + 2 is 4. Like it will always say 4. But people, some people believe 2 + 2 is 5. Yeah. But I would just say that by being able to make it customized for everyone, but then have the basic foundation pillars of, you need to have performance management, you need to have goal setting, you need to have feedback loops, you need to have consistent communication, and you need to have this all in a system that then your employees can talk to and have conversations, not fumble around looking for, if my mother's sick, what type of time can I take off to help her? It can know who you are, know where you live, what your policies are, what time you can take, and you can have a conversation. And that's where everything is going for the future, and that's how AI can help.
No, I'm sure these themes resonate for everybody here. And you mentioned OpenAI and Anthropic and others using your platform. And one of the more intriguing themes of the day to me is the way companies at the bleeding edge of AI using AI themselves to drive innovation at their own companies. I think the gentleman from NVIDIA earlier today was talking about how, from a chip design standpoint, they've built a model at NVIDIA to help them augment the chip designs of their future using an LLM that they've built. And so to me, at Google back in the day, we used to call this eating your own dog food, of course. And it's really fun to see that emerging as a theme today. Now, you guys have also been at the leading edge of AI and thought about all kinds of use cases around AI. I think sometime this year, you all contemplated this notion of AI agents to help generate lead generation for you all. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what you learned in that experience this year?
Yeah, so we had a moment, so as CEO of a company, we're always looking for how can you increase revenue, make employees more productive, increase top line, decrease bottom line, all of that. And we were looking at AI and how we could use an AI SDR to help augment the sales team. And as going through the process, it became very clear to me that as a CEO, I needed to be transparent with my organization and held accountable to my organization for the decisions that we were making, because being very direct, we were choosing to use headcount dollars to fund technology AI. And the question I have then is, all the stuff I just said around you got to manage people's performance, make sure that blah, blah, blah.
Right.
How am I a good service to my company if I'm going to bring in an AI to do a job and not measure its performance? You think about technology that we've all put into our world today, into our companies. How often do we say, okay, let me look at that Workday system. Is it performing well for me? What goals have I set for it? Is it doing well? We don't think about it like that because it is a technology. We don't think that it needs like a performance management system. And so the question I had was, how do I hold AI accountable? Meaning, if I'm going to bring an AI sales representative into my team, how will the people on my team know who they're working with or what they're working with? How will the people on my team know what goals that AI is supposed to be held accountable for, and if it's doing a good job? Is it, or if it's a customer service agent, for example, is it deflecting cases and answering questions, or is it just making customers unhappy? How do we do that? So that was the idea, was how do you hold AI accountable as you bring it into the workforce? And I say this because also I look to other innovations we've had in the tech world, between whether it's social media or mobile phones. And at the time of inception, great democratizers, great access, Arab Spring, all these incredible things that technology like social and mobile did do for us. But if we could look back and say, but did you know that you were also going to create massive anxiety and massive addiction? Would you have done anything differently? And I say yes when I look at my children, I look at my own behavior, and I mean, you think it wasn't until probably over a decade or two that we've been able to have technology like screen time management.
Yeah.
So if we would have thought at the inception of these technologies, how do we responsibly bring it into our lives, we may be in a better place. And it's not just about the governance of the data, and it's not just about making sure there's no biases. It's about really looking at in my opinion, the accountability that we have to have for whether it's doing well or not, and the impact on people. Because getting back to, I think, your question, which is the North for us is the success of people.
Right.
And we want to build a people-powered future where AI is helpful to us. But we have to be very careful that we don't take a side route, detour into a dystopian future where we have massive job elimination because we're not really looking at what's happening.
Man, there's so much to react to and reflect on there. I mean, I'll start with, one of the things I appreciated about your leadership this year, just from afar, is sort of your introspective spirit. This institute I founded at Virginia Tech, the Institute for Leadership and Technology, one of the North Stars we try to hold up for our tech executives who come through the program is introspection. And how do you cultivate the muscles of introspection? And you're right. I mean, it sounds like, you were here in spirit this morning, because when I was introducing Senator Warner this morning, I said out loud, I was at Twitter 10 years ago, and I wish we as a company and I as an executive had self-actualized to sort of balance the hype with a little bit of self-critical reflection as well around to what end. And I wish we had convened and participated in events like these, which is why I'm so proud in this era, we are contemplating and being, yes, introspective at the front end, which is great. And then Senator Warner poked fun back at me and said, yes, we should have done that. But do you want?
There's a lot of things with Twitter that were.
Yeah, that's a different event. I'm curious. You know, we have your former colleague from Salesforce.
Yeah,
here.
we were chatting earlier.
Yeah. Could you, I mean, and your roles at Salesforce and the products you ship, Trailhead, et cetera, are, you know, Silicon Valley legend as well. Just could you talk a little bit about what you learned at Salesforce and what stays with you from Salesforce in particular here at Lattice?
Yeah, so I was very privileged to spend 15 years at Salesforce and yes, had multiple roles, grew up from just being a product marketer into running the platform, taking it from $2 billion, $4 billion business. Yes, building Trailhead, strong belief in democratizing learning and making it accessible to all. And selfishly in the vein of changing the ratios in tech, because in the tech industry where I operate daily, there's just not enough representation from underrepresented minorities, and gender is one that I deeply care about. And so doing that by making learning tech not seem hard and giving people pathways to six-figure salaries in US dollars without necessarily having to have a college degree, which I am so lucky to have been able to have from an incredible institution, but not everybody has those opportunities. I was CMO. I worked for Mark. I worked for Brett, Mark Benioff, Brett Taylor. Yep. And I've learned so much, but it's also what I've learned goes back to some of these fundamentals. Like, I'm so grateful for learning at Virginia Tech this solution-oriented mindset and problem-solving mindset. From Salesforce, you learn a lot of the importance of being bold and leading from the front, combined with it's not just what you do, but how you do it that matters. And that introspection, like you're saying, has been really what I think brings me to Lattice, where I do want to lead from the front. I want to pioneer. I want to think about how we can make an impact. Life is so short that if I'm not here to do something, powerful and impactful, like I don't want to believe that I don't have a meaning to my life. And so the work that we do is a way to do that and to make the world a better place for our children. And my two daughters, selfishly, is what I get up every day, and I want to make the world better for them. And that we were just talking earlier about AI and some innovations that we did at Lattice. That was a leadership moment for me, because if you don't know, we basically announced at Lattice that we were going to have a way to manage AI similar to how you manage people. Right. And just did a simple LinkedIn post on this, and it went kind of crazy. And it struck this nerve where I was like, whoa, this is insane, because people misinterpreted a little bit, not a little bit, they misinterpreted that we were saying that AI was human, which we were not. But what it had shown the light on was how much fear there is around what AI is going to be doing, combined with a lack of education of what AI really is. And this was a moment with the company where we had to have honest conversations of, okay, everyone, look what's happening right here. People are talking about this in good and bad ways, and there's a very important conversation that we need to lead in. And that was an introspection which it caught me off guard. I was like, why are people paying so much attention to my little LinkedIn post?
Traveling, a lot of impressions.
And you have to, as a leader, be willing to look at the good and the bad and the ugly and the indifferent, and be honest and accountable and transparent in your decision making.
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, it's not inevitable that you would have taken a step back. 9 out of 10 leaders may not have, and I hear a lot of ut prosim, that I may serve in you as well, which is Virginia Tech's motto, of course. I'm curious, you mentioned you obviously launched Trailhead. You have a passion for lifelong learning. You run Lattice now, a business overseeing kind of how people elevate and grow in their careers. What trends are you noticing around kind of the future of skills and sensibilities that matter in the workplace? Our institute suggests that in 10 years, when you're in a meeting room and someone says something breakthrough, it may not just be their computational prowess or what have you. It may be their ability to communicate with precision and clarity and introspection and all that. Are there any trend lines you're seeing, given that this is a passion of yours and at Lattice and otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think you had very great articulation of what things are going to be doing. And, I think back, I often think about the first calculators. And the first calculators were people. They were people that sat down and did math. They actually did the math. And when the machine calculators came around, the human calculators were like, well, what are we going to do? Well, turns out they can be better at math because they have a tool that can help them be faster. And they can do more sophisticated, more complicated math and have more ideas, more innovation because they're elevating and unlocking their potential. And so what you said is what I believe, which is that the skills that are most important are things like the curiosity, the drive, the ability to communicate your thought, to communicate and work well and collaborate with others. And those are the basics that really need to be taught, is not just, the rubric for how you would go by, solving a problem, but the thought process that you will go through and how to keep your mind curious to multiple solutions. And this is going back to also you ask about Salesforce, learning. Mark Benioff talks about this often, the idea of beginner's mind is Kaizen, he says. And it's the idea that in the expert's mind, there are few possibilities, but in the beginner's mind, there are many. And by keeping ourselves grounded in that and being open-minded, these are the skills that we need to embrace, because the more closed-minded we get, the more divisive we become, and the more polarized as societies we turn into. And the less our innovation serves our great diversity, because we cannot solve anything with a one-size-fits-all solution. So what we see, particularly with learning and what I think is AI, is so incredible, and we're just on the start of putting this into our own platform, is having very bespoke learning, very bespoke coaching. It's incredible what you can do now to, AI is not just typing with it, but multiple modalities, and you can instruct it, say, hey, I want to practice a conversation with an employee around giving them some constructive feedback. And then boop, 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 AI turns up and you're like, okay, pretend that you are this person with, this, qualifications, and that you may be angry when I give you this feedback. And then you practice with the AI, and then it transcribes and it gives you the feedback afterwards, and it's like, hey, right here you were too aggressive and you made them feel on their heels. In this part, they had some good points that you didn't listen to, and you could have showed more empathy. And this point, you could have been more direct in giving them very concise some concise data points for what drove this feedback. And so there's just some incredible things that AI can help unlock our abilities by helping us to, whether it's coaching, practicing, or bespoke learning, because people learn different ways. You think about, do you work out? Do you run or
play some tennis and
play tennis?
Run now and then, sure.
Okay, you think everybody has different styles of coaching they like. Like some people like the, drop and give me 20 right now, like drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Some people like the, yoga, I'm gonna be zen. And so the more that the training can be generated on the fly, bespoke to you with a teacher that's going to talk to you in the language that you speak, in the tone that you want, with the subject matter that is interesting to you. You may like butterflies or you may like trucks, but either way, or you might want to learn about how certain aerodynamics work. And so that is an incredible unlock for us, that AI can be an incredible tool that, just like it made calculators better at math, it can make people better at doing their jobs and better at just being people.
Man, so many reactions again. I mean, one, just, the importance of people in the future being comfortable with multiplicity, which, you often don't see nowadays. And then I was also, as you were talking, reflecting on the long tail of learning. That's a reality these days. A couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. First question is just sort of, again, we're here in the Washington area. Senator Warner was here this morning. I know you have a passion for public policy and some of these discussions happening about AI policy as it relates to education or national security even. Any counsel you would offer, he's not here anymore, but counsel you would offer Senator Warner or folks here in Washington about how to think about this regulatory moment in and around generative artificial intelligence? Anything come to mind for you?
I mean, so yeah, when I was doing Trailhead, I did do a little bit of work. I came to the Hill, I did some lobbying for the Higher Education Act and being able to make some amendments around alternative ways for accreditation because it turns out an accredited degree is the single most exclusionary tactic for recruiters when looking for people applying for jobs because they're just like, oh, I want someone with a degree, check. And then if you don't have that, you're not going to make the list. And so make the cut. And there's a lot of skills, whether you're served in the military. I mean, there's incredible leadership skills that you get serving in the military. And you don't necessarily have to have an accredited degree to have those skills. But what it took was passion and understanding for what's really out there in the world and what's really motivating people and where the opportunity is going to come from. So I think that if I had any counsel, it would be we need a lot of education. I mentioned the thing earlier with AI and the misunderstanding of people with our announcement at Lattice. And that misunderstanding most often comes from a lack of education. People still today, I mean, not here in this room, but most people think that AI is just a pre-programmed set of if then else rules that will give you an answer and it will do what you want it to do. They don't think of it as like a reasoning entity that is going to be having conversations. And so as we go into developing policies and guardrails, we need to have a balance of, one, understanding what it really is and educating everybody on it to remove the fear. Because when you have fear driving your decision making, it's fear of, whether it's fear of job loss, fear of money loss, fear of anything. Fear puts you in a bad place from a decision-making standpoint. So we need a lot of education to remove the fear and feel comfortable. The other balance, I would say, is the embracing of the opportunity. We don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to make it so that people have so much red tape to go through that you just can't innovate. And so being able to balance those two things is I think, going to be very important as we go into whatever we have for legislation or for implementation, because we don't want to be scared, but we don't want to do things irresponsible.
I so appreciate your attention to education and education policy in particular. One of the ways I try to think about it of late is sort of asking a question along the lines of, what does the full stack human of the future look like? In the technology world, we tend to think in terms of stacks, right? Front end, back end, and APIs, this, that, and the other. What if we imagine people for a moment as stacks, and yes, the applied layer of our stack needs to be literate in today's technology trends. Today it's generative AI, a few years ago it was Web 3, 10 years ago it was Web 2, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows what it is 10 years from now? But what's the infrastructure layer of that stack, right? And I think that's where, in my mind, the humanities come to mind, and certainly these skills of introspection. And so maybe we can partner us on some education advocacy one day. Last question, just looking ahead to, next year's 2025. We're halfway through this wild decade. I'm just curious, what's top of mind for you at Lattice as you look ahead to 2025 and beyond? What keeps you up at night? What are some of your biggest goals and North Stars? And then we'll wrap from there.
Yeah, I mean, next year for Lattice, it's really, it's just building the people-powered future. is how we help people be successful and make AI this catalyst to really unlocking potential, and that's our focus. It's also my 50th birthday next year, so that's
All right,
like,
yeah. More important.
that's like the big thing on my mind.
Come back to Blacksburg.
And we'll throw down, right, on the drill field, yeah.
Yeah, in better weather. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us here at our conference. And again, a warm thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Franklin.